Let's get going with 1 Samuel 1 to 15. No, I don't have my mic on. Thank you very much. Do I have my mic on now? Can you hear me? Now? Can I hear you now? Can I hear you now? Today I'd like to start out with starting just with the chapters and go right through them. So rather than as much of the general overall thing, probably if I open this up it'll be helpful. So, what's the name of the general part of the Bible we're looking at now? The former prophets. Okay, that's the larger thing. What was the first part? The Torah. That's books Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. So far this time we have done, the last 2 weeks, Joshua and Judges. Now we're going to break it down into half a book for each of them. Okay, so we'll do 1 Samuel and 2, 2 Samuel and 2, and 1 and 2 Kings the same way. Part of what's called by many people the Deuteronomic history, or the Deuteronomistic history, both of those are used. The Deuteronomy, it kind of forms the framework out of which all these people are evaluated. How do they act according to the relationship that God set in motion through Moses as the people were coming into the land of promise? It is not a good story. It's a story of many of them turning away, but some of them being faithful as well. So here we go with our former and latter prophets. Then I'm going to skip through these very quickly to get to my chart for each one of them. So 1 Samuel chapter 1. We have just seen a variety of judges. Some of those we called major judges, some of those minor judges. And those judges, by and large, were raised up by God at a particular time when there was a particular problem. Remember, the pattern was, first of all, the people turn away from God. Then the consequences come upon them. There's a foreign invader. Then they cry out to God in their bondage. And then God raises up a judge or a deliverer. We're going to see that Samuel and Saul and David will all have some of those characteristics. Solomon and the others after that won't. But the same kind of framework. And so how do they react to what's going on? So with Samuel, first of all, we have to have him before we can see how he fits in, because we're going to find out that the high priest at that time, whose name is Eli, that Eli has a couple of no good sons. Saul is going to have, or Samuel is going to have a couple of no good sons. Saul will have a good sons, but he's not so good. Okay? And David, the story gets really complicated at that point. But the real question here is there going to be a dynasty of any sort? With the high priest, it was supposed to be a dynasty. The oldest child of the high priest would become the next high priest. That's not going to happen here. It's going to take a couple of generations for that to shake out. But Eli's sons are both going to be killed in battle. And so we're going to have a kind of a different route for this than the normal kind of a route. But we start with a story that is a replica of some of the other places. Where else do we have a woman who wants to have a child and can't have one? I want 3 answers. Sarah is 1. Rebecca is 2. Sister. Rachel. All 3 of them want to have a child and can't. And so Sarah, remember, is 90 years old when she has her first child. We aren't told about Rachel, but Rebecca, it says that there were 20 years. You about ready? Huh? You about ready, Harriet? Can you imagine? Can you imagine? So you laugh, Dennis. You laugh. And that's what Isaac's name means. Exactly the sound that Dennis just made. In Hebrew is the sound of his name. Anyway, so here we have two women. The overview, all the way really from Joshua all the way through 2 Kings, is the story about God's presence through the ark, and how does God rule? Through whom and how does God rule? So the ark and kingship. We're going to see that the ark, maybe in the original text, was never mentioned during Saul's reign. There's one place where it gets mentioned, but kind of an odd situation there that some people wonder about whether that's not some little mark in the margin that got put in the text. But anyway, who wrote 1st and 2nd Samuel? Nobody knows. Right? So that's okay. See, a lot of times people say, well, we have to know who wrote it in order to be able to think that it came from God. God didn't seem to have that problem. People would recognize that this is God's side of the story. And I will say that a lot of times as we go through this course, that it's not as much what does God want us to do, but what does God want us to know? What does he want us to know about himself? And what does he want us to know about our relationship with him and with other people? And so we're going to see a lot of ways in which people have wandered away from that story. So there's a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim. Do that one 10 times. Ramathaim, in the commentaries it says that in later times is Arimathea. What do you know about Arimathea? Joseph of Arimathea, and what did he do?
The tomb.
He's the one who offers this tomb in which Jesus is buried. Okay? And anyway, Ephraim, just kind of north of Jerusalem, a few miles. There are a lot of hills and valleys up in this central mountain range, and so lots of little burgs, lots of little places where people lived, and there'd be water runoff one way or another, whatever. But anyway, so the husband's name is Elkanah. The wives' names are Peninnah and Hannah. And Peninnah has children and Hannah does not. If you want to understand Peninnah's way of dealing with Hannah, kind of remember Hagar's way of dealing with Sarah.
Right.
Nah, I can have kids and you can't, which is not going to go down very well. And so as we look into the story, we find that Hannah is mocked for being childless, and so she goes to ask God to give her a child. The typical phrase is that the Lord shut up her womb. Please give me a little slack on this one. Every time the car wants to go in the garage, the door is down. Okay, car can't get in the garage. Okay, the activity doesn't result in a baby. She doesn't know why. Why would most people think?
She's barren.
Yeah, but why?
She sinned.
She sinned.
Yeah.
She had done something wrong. That's the standard answer. It's your fault. You did something wrong, and if you fess up, maybe you'll get beyond that. You have a whole book called Job, which is that same kind of thing. It's not the way Job turns out, but it's the way his friends think. And our Lord himself, about the man born blind, says don't think that you're going to figure out why everything happened. But people are very willing to do that, especially if they're the ones with the kids and the other one doesn't have it. Right? And so she is barren. She asked the Lord for a child. What time of the year is this? What's the celebration? What does it say? From his city year by year to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh, Does it tell us any more than that? No. What are the three major times a year that the Israelites were to go up to worship God at a sanctuary? First of all, in the spring of the year, when you began your grain harvest. Okay, the first fruits of the grain. Does anybody remember what that's called? Have any of you ever heard of Passover? Vaguely, okay. Yeah. Who taught you in the past? Rummy's like that. You gotta look for someone who's competent next time. Anyway, that's the first one. That's when they began their first fruits. Now, pay attention. I believe it would, I don't know if it's the standard epistle every year, but pay attention where I think it's 2 Corinthians, where the text says that Christ is the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. Which weekend? Passover weekend. Well, everybody else is bringing their first couple handfuls of barley to say, thank you, Lord, we've begun another year of harvest. The harvest unto eternal life is happening there as well. Okay. Second major one is the Feast of Weeks. Anybody know what that one's called? I wear red. Huh?
Reformation.
Pentecost. Pentecost.
Reformation.
Reformation's not in the Bible. Luther thought it should have been. That's Passover, that's Pentecost. Pentecost is with the word 50 in it. Okay, 7/7, so it took them about 7 weeks to harvest, roughly, okay? So, then you bring your tithe. People from all over the world would have made their trip to Jerusalem when they could. And so, there you're bringing your grain. In the fall of the year, you would bring your tithe of all of your fruits. Your grapes, like the ones on the table over there, your dates, your figs, and all of that. What does Eli accuse Hannah of? Being drunk. Which one of the three? That one's called, the third one, by the way, is called Sukkot, or the Feast of Booths. That's the one. Now, the Feast of Booths means that you would have a little lean-to shelter out in your fields in the fall of the year, because you don't want anyone wandering through your fields, your vineyards at 2 o'clock in the morning helping themselves to your grapes. Okay, so they called it Sukkot, or Sukkah. In fact, I remember a few years ago at the Jewish synagogue down on Fairview, that somebody burned it down or tried to burn down their sukkah that they had there. Okay, and so they'll put that up near their sanctuary every year. So fall of the year, he thinks she's in the sauce. He thinks she's drinking some of the fresh new wine, the must, and that she has wandered drunk into the sanctuary, and she says, "No, sir, I haven't had anything to drink. I am just quietly moving my lips as I'm pouring my heart out to the Lord." And Eli says, "The Lord's going to give you what you ask. If you're that honorable woman, then he's going to give you what you ask." And she gets pregnant. But she says something about that child. What's she going to do?
Give it to the Lord.
Give him back to the Lord. Now that's not the norm. They're Ephraimites. Okay? Who's Ephraim?
Joseph's son, isn't it?
Joseph's younger son, Manasseh and Ephraim. The Ephraimites are basically in the Central Hill Country region here, the whole middle part of it, what later gets called Samaria because of the capital city, and where you later hear about in the New Testament, the Samaritans would have lived here, the Judahites would live here, or the Judeans, and the Galileans would have lived up in the north. So in the New Testament area, you've got three basic kinds of areas they talk about, but the Ephraimites are here. Benjamin is kind of in this area, and all of this is Judah and Simeon's territory down there a little bit. But anyway, so of the tribe of Ephraim, not of the tribe of Levi. Okay, so she's going to give him to God. to serve at the shrine, to serve Eli and his family. So they tell us the story. Okay, she has had her child, and when he is weaned, she brings him up to Shiloh. Now, how old when he's weaned?
About 3 years.
Probably 3 or 4 years, yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that he only nursed, but they would have still nursed the kids in the evening, before they put them down. At least that's the way that most of the descriptions talk about. And so when he's 3 or 4 years old, I mean, you're not going to take up a 1-year-old and say, here, Eli. That doesn't quite work. That's more work than any help. But when he's old enough that he can begin to do little chores and run around and pick up sticks or something like that, then they take him up there to the sanctuary at Shiloh. And Shiloh, there are various places where the ark is mentioned. Gilgal is one of them. Shiloh is another one. There's a couple other places that we're going to see along the way where the ark is. Where isn't it at this point? It's not in Jerusalem. They don't have Jerusalem yet. They don't possess Jerusalem yet, and so they certainly, that's until after the time of David, and then Solomon's the one who's going to build the temple. So that's almost 100 years later than this. Not quite, but almost 100 years later. So now Hannah goes to thank the Lord. This is a wonderful song, terribly hard to translate. These ancient songs, the one thing about poetry is that poetry says the same thing in different ways. I don't watch Dave Letterman anymore, but he likes to do this. He likes to see how many different ways he can say something. It was cool, it was neat, it was great, it was audacious, it was stupendous. He might go on for 6 or 7 words. You see some of the rap, some of the rhyming that will go on. That's a little bit more, not the rap type of sound, but the kind of thing where you would talk about the gift that God had given and find all sorts of different ways of referring to that. Hannah prays. Her prayer does not sound like it's just about her immediate story. I'm going to read it to you. There is none holy like the Lord. There is none besides thee. There is no rock like our God. Talk no more so very proudly. Let not arrogance come from your mouth. For the Lord is a God of knowledge, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty are broken. I have to say the bows. The bows of the mighty are broken, but the feeble gird on strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread, but those who were hungry have ceased to hunger. The barren has borne 7, but she who has many children is forlorn. The Lord kills and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He makes low. He also exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap, to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness. For not by might shall a man prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken to pieces. Against them he will thunder in heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the power of his anointed. Now, what's the strange thing about the last verse? There is no king. What? Well, here it is. All sorts of reasons why people think about that. He will thunder from the heavens, that God uses the natural kinds of things. We saw that referred to also in the Song of Deborah, where after Deborah and Barak win a victory over Sisera, it's also about how God uses the stars and uses the heavens. And so the poetry, sometimes the poetry will be what they call synonymous, where you say the same thing in 2 different ways. Sometimes they'll call it antithetic, where he raises up the lowly but brings the high down, and something like that. Sometimes it's called synthetic, when the second part of it just adds to the first part. You'll see this many, many Psalms that are outside the book of Psalms, songs of victory and songs of lament and a variety of these. I've got a whole thick book just on the Psalms outside the book of Psalms. No. But this is, well, who sings a song like this? Yeah, Mary or Elizabeth. It's even a little bit puzzling in the text about that, but it's based on this. Okay, because Elizabeth was another one who in her old age had a child. No, but this thing about the enemies and everything, is it personal that God says, I'm going to help you get back at all those people who were mocking you? How does it go? But so in general, God watches out for the lowly. He hasn't forgotten us, even if it looks like he has. Now it's descriptive. You can't make it prescriptive. You can't say, well, if I pray this psalm every day, then everything God wants for me will happen as well. Okay, so we know that it happens at times, but we can't say, okay, what's the trick? How am I going to get God to do what I want? Well, if I read the Bible and find the right little secret passages, I can do that. No, but we do see there are times when he does that. And so then we are told that they left Samuel there. His name means asked of God or heard by God. Shama means to listen, give ear. Sometimes it can even mean obey. And El, of course, is one of the words for God. So they leave him there. Hannah thanks God, who is her rock. And that word comes many, many different places. The rock versus something that can be slippery and that does not give you support and foundation. Well, we have other troubles, though. We have troubles right here in River City. Because Eli's two boys are no good nicks. What are the two major things that they do? What are their two major sins? They're stealing what?
Offering.
The offerings, the animal sacrifices. So they put the animal sacrifice in a pot, and then they take out the fork and whatever somebody stabs in, whatever comes out is theirs. They say, we're tired of boiled food, we want it roasted, you give us the best portion. First of all, we're not taking potluck. We want to be first in line, and we'll get ours before you get yours. More significant, well, I can't say more significantly, because that is significant, as I'll mention in a moment, but also that they are being unfaithful with the girls at the shrine. We know they're married because there is a child that dies, or the mother dies giving birth to the child after the ark is taken. So they are married, but also they're being unfaithful. And so those two things. Now, I said even more significant for us, it's more significant the sexual abuse. But for them, if God says, here's what I set up for you, and they say, no, we want more. That's the root sin. I want more than I've got. And if I have power to get it, I'm going to get it. If I can dominate somebody else, I will dominate them. That's what the song just before this was talking about. That God puts down those who try to dominate others and have control over them. And here we go right into this. And so Samuel, we are told that his mother and father visit along the way, just kind of little things about, they bring him a little bigger robe every year. Lydia, I would imagine that you got into some of the kibbutzim in Israel. Did you ever get to anywhere where they have the first graders in one building and then the second graders and the third graders with a little bit larger beds, a little bit larger toilets, the hook's a little bit higher on the wall, and the clothes are just a little bit bigger. So when you move out, you leave your clothes and the next kids come and move into them. At least the one kibbutz that I remember this at the best was a group of Germans. And some women watched the kids and during the daytime while the others, the men and women, were out in the fields. But the kids didn't live with their mom and dad. They lived in the commune setting. And so here, each year, they bring some new clothes for him. And so gradually he is participating there and doing whatever they need him to. It says that the people were favorable toward him. So we get, and there aren't many biblical characters I don't think we ought to talk about the Bible as a book of heroes. I know a lot of pastors do. We all, we could all be more like so-and-so, wouldn't it be a much better world? But just in terms of the description, we've got some people who are, like Miriam. We don't find anything bad about Miriam in the Bible. We do about both Aaron and Moses, that they get grumpy and whatever. But Samuel is as close as you can get. The only one like him we're going to talk about next week, and after that is, or particularly next week, is Jonathan, who is willing to step aside to allow David to become king. Most people would kill their rival, but here he is going to be willing to step aside. But Samuel really just comes off as an honorable fellow all the way through. Some of the prophets are going to be the same way, but in the narrative material, he doesn't seem to do anything that is untoward. Peter, is going to deny Christ, and Paul and Peter are going to have situations of disagreements and things like that. But Samuel, lots of different jobs that he has, and so already it says he found favor with the Lord and with people. And then every once in a while, I think there's probably 4 or 5 of these times, maybe 6, in Joshua, Judges, Samuel, and Kings, where a person appears and just says something. Okay, and we don't know who it is. We've talked about this a little bit already last time. But somebody comes along and says that Eli's family is going to lose the priesthood. Okay, what would you call such a person? A prophet. That would be the standard. And the prophet is not just random, it's because of what's going on. This is where it's going to end. Okay, so it's not a threat. It just says, well, it's not a threat, it's a promise. This is going to happen. There's no way this is going to be undone. And we like to think of God as a God who keeps giving us second and third and fourth chances. I guess he does. But there are also times in the Bible where one chance and that's it. If you fail in that one time, then you're out. And Eli's sons have failed. Remember, Eli is not just some priest in some little corner. He is the high priest. He is the descendant either of Aaron or Moses. He's certainly a Levitic priest. And he is expected to be the one who leads everybody. The son, Hophni, is going to be his successor as the high priest. We're not talking just about somebody out in the country. We're talking about the major leaders who have turned away. And the judgment on those who are leaders is always higher because they take a lot of others down with them. And so, you don't just say, well, we'll do whatever we want to here. And so the comment is made that they will lose the priesthood. Chapter 3. Now we get to find out a little bit about the story. Anything on the first 2 chapters that you wondered about? We have a little bit more time to kind of look at some of this. Jim? Okay, I don't really want to hear from you.
This
So.
is, but it deals with Elkanah. Elkanah, is that the name?
Elkanah.
Anyway,
Elkanah would be probably a better Hebrew pronunciation. Elkanah.
Well, she wasn't eating and he wanted to ask her about that. He says, why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? This is the part I like. You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons?
You like that one, huh?
Little chauvinistic there.
Yes. Yes.
Where did you
To-
just read that from?
To which she answered,
Well, it's out of my Bible. It's
Well,
verse 8.
chapter 1.
chapter 1.
Yeah, verse 8. Am I not more to you than 10 sons?
Sure, honey.
Well, some suggest that she and Peninnah were getting equal portions, and she was getting a big pile of it.
2 to 1.
No, that she was just getting a big pile of food.
Oh,
That they each got the same portion, and Peninnah had to give it to all her kids, and she got the whole portion herself. Remember how Benjamin gets the 5?
yeah.
Gets 5 times as much as everybody else? A lot of these things, I have said this word before, in a lot of places we're in guess land. Okay, there are a lot of things where we don't know exactly the nuance of what's there. That's why they make big fat commentaries where they summarize the 4 or 5 possible explanations in this one and say it goes here. So was her one portion just enough for her, or was it the equal, that the wives each get an equal amount? And so in essence, she's kind of grumpy because she can't even eat it all. If she had kids, she could share it with them. So I don't know. You know, I don't know with any of these things. There's a whole realm of maybe it's this and maybe it's that, and it just tells us how far away we are from the story.
Also in the prayer of praise, and again, in my Bible, it says something to the effect that the woman has 7 children. I assume that's not Hannah we're talking about.
No, but it could be Penina.
Good.
Mhm. It could be the woman who has 7 is down in the mouth, but the other who has, the barren has borne 7, that could be, yes, I'm sorry on that part. But then that would be anticipatory, because we know that she has other children.
Okay.
But I don't think it says how many. But the one with many children is forlorn. You don't count up your happiness based on what you count, but on what your peace is with the Lord and with your family around you and all the rest of that. And so, but these women and their hatred of one another, you know, it's really tough. Now Judaism permitted bigamy all the way into the Middle Ages. And I think it was about 1,000 that they finally said, no, we're not going to practice this anymore. So, you know, the trouble is if I say, well, it's in the Bible, so therefore we ought to be able to do it. There's a lot of things in the Bible that we don't want to do, and that God does for reasons of sin and war. You know, if a guy died and his wife hadn't had a child by him yet, that the next brother would have a child with her, that would be the brother's child, and we see stories about that. So a lot of things that are kind of uncomfortable for us along the way. But again, if I read this and I read it as an exact description of what's in chapter 1, there are some kind of odd things about it. And so we don't know at what point there is this song that was out there that gets put in at this point as something that either is what she sang or what she would have sung, you know, what was in her heart as well. And there we get into the complexity of how does it all come to be. I mean, we've got this thing about the king and his anointed in the end when we don't have one yet. And so something's up, but then you start guessing and then you get all sorts of different answers for it. But what do we know about Eli and his sons? What did he do about stopping them from doing what they were doing? Nothing. Nothing. He cannot control his kids. All right? Preachers.
That hasn't changed.
I knew I could let you do that one. That man has said that God has revealed himself, and I promised this. One thing I wanted to say yet about chapter, did I bounce this ahead one?
We're still at
There is one thing about this man, the Eli's family losing the priesthood. I wanted to read to you. Where'd that go? I have almost the whole text highlighted, so it doesn't help me anymore. There is a phrase in there, someplace in chapter 2, I believe, that says,
Would that be in the Song of Hannah then?
no.
You read
I'm looking at chapter 2, verse 30.
Oh,
Therefore the Lord, the God of Israel, declares, I promised that your house and the house of your father should go in and out before me forever. But now, the Lord declares, far be it from me, for those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days are coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your father's house, so that there will not be an old man in your house. So, when we say, well, God made a promise, and he has to keep it. So if I go into the Old Testament, and I read the Old Testament, and I look for every promise, and I say, God promised this, so it has to come true, right? This is a very helpful text to say, not necessarily. Because he makes, oh gee. It's not just this, it's all. Good thing you didn't have shoulder surgery. But not recently.
Not recently.
But let me
Yes,
finish
finish
this.
your thought.
The idea that if God makes a promise, he has to keep it.
No.
This one says, you turn away from him, you leave the relationship, and it's not the right way to say it, but all bets are off.
Yeah.
You don't get to stand at the altar and say, I do, and then go and cheat on your spouse, and have then come back to her and say, look, you promised that we were going to stay married. Why are you filing for divorce? Her answer is going to be, because you cheated on the relationship. And you didn't keep your part of the bargain. And so therefore, what you want to hold me to doesn't match anymore. Here's God saying that. Okay? So it doesn't mean that I'm going to overstate this, but it doesn't mean our daily sinning and the things we do against God are going to throw us out of the relationship. But if we finally say to God, we don't really want you anymore. We don't want the relationship, which is what Eli's sons were really doing in their actions, then don't be holding me to a promise. So when Israel loses its land, the big thing the prophets are going to say is, you left me. Prepare to meet your God. Your deeds don't even permit you to return to me. There's all sorts of things. But the one that God's not going to put up with is, you promised, now how come you're not delivering? And so over hundreds of years we're going to see this. Okay, I have several hands up, but
Now that you put that
so
into
that I don't hurt your shoulder anymore.
Now that you put it into context, that I understand that. What I sometimes will hear from people is, well, God changes his mind. And so that was what first flashed into my
Yes.
head.
I am the Lord, I change not.
Yeah, but when you start like that, but now,
Yeah.
it sounds like
And the
I've
but
changed my
now,
mind.
but the but now is what you don't want to hear ever from God.
Yeah.
Okay?
And you don't wanna confuse his promise with a covenant.
Oh, yeah.
The covenant is forever, isn't it?
This was a covenant. This was a covenant with the high priestly family. Okay? Covenants can be broken. God says, I'm never going to break it on my side. But you could break it. You could leave me. You could deny this whole thing, and then I will act accordingly. The day you take of the fruit of the tree, you will surely die.
I guess I'm thinking the other way.
God will never change his way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we are told in the scriptures, he will never turn away from us. So as we come to him and acknowledge his lordship and our need for that, we are assured of our salvation. But there's a phraseology used by some Christians, once saved, always saved. And it's a misuse of, I'm elect by God, so whatever I do doesn't matter. I can do anything I want and I'm still going to be saved. Those kind of things, those don't play. Okay, but back in Genesis 15, there's this thing where Abram has a dream, vision, whatever it is, and God says, take animals and flip them side by side, you know, the two halves, and then this fiery pot goes through in the middle. The standard of making a covenant was you would kill some animals, walk through between them, and say, if I break this relationship, I can get split like that animal was. Okay? And so it's really somebody who is saying, I bind myself to this relationship. But there is nothing, God is not going to be whimsical. But he says people who in their hearts want more than what I've given, like a better cut of meat, than what I had set up for them. And they want more than what I've given, which can even get confused by us into asking God to give us all of our wants. And Jesus says, whatever you ask in prayer, believing you will receive, even if you say to the mountain, jump into the sea. And there are a lot of people who can twist that into, hey, I want $20,000 tomorrow. And if I don't get it, then you must be a lousy God, and then I don't care about you anymore. Or more often, would you get my father through his heart attack? And then dad dies. And well, what kind of God would let my beloved dad die of a heart attack? As if that's the relationship that God established. He says, that's not the relationship I established. Look at what my covenant is. I give you eternal life. I give you forgiveness of sins. I don't necessarily make it so that you never have to have any ankle surgery, or whatever it might be. One person did you something?
I was thinking, the word conditional, is that involved in this?
Not from God's side.
Not God's side, but we think it
Well,
could be on our side, or?
Is God's love unconditional?
Yes, I think it is.
Yeah.
If we don't live up to,
Unconditional.
Huh?
if we reject him,
No.
hang on.
No, God is constant.
Always, yeah, I'm thinking through.
Yeah, you're getting a look.
Don't raise that arm.
That's okay.
Yeah, you're getting that look, yeah. Yeah, don't raise the arm on that one. I believe that God's love is conditional. On our part, not on his.
For us,
Yes.
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 Yeah.
If
We make
you-
it that
If
way.
you take of the
Yes.
fruit of the tree in the garden, you will surely die. That's a condition,
Yeah.
okay? It's not, I'm gonna throw you out the day if I don't like the way you're raking.
Yeah.
But if you say to me, go back to heaven and get out of here, and you want nothing to do with me, the consequences will come upon you. What do we call that in the New Testament? The sin against the Holy Spirit. Because what does the Spirit of God do? Comes to bring us the benefits of Jesus dying and rising. If I say, I'm not interested, and I put the garage door down and say, I don't want whatever you're offering, then since that's the delivery system for the forgiveness of sins, if I say I don't want it, or later in life say I never did believe in that stuff, or I don't think it's anything value to me, then I have to say to somebody there is a certain point at which it's not yours anymore. I don't know when that is. I'm going to keep on being gracious to people until they die, or until they tell me to be quiet.
And you don't want to chance it. Yeah.
Well, I don't want someone who I could bring the gospel to not to hear it because I've decided they don't deserve it anymore. But there may be indeed people who die who have been Christian at one point who have said, no, I don't believe in this stuff. And so were Hophni and Phinehas ever faithful? The text just doesn't give us that. It just comes in right at the end of the game and says, this is why the house of Eli was lost. And we're going to see it right now why with all of that kind of stuff. So God is not conditional with us based on our behavior. But he does say that if we break the relationship, that the consequences of the broken relationship will come upon us. I think one of the stupidest things I hear is when I go to a wedding and the pastor or the priest is talking about divorce and divorce statistics during a wedding.
Oh my goodness.
I've heard that too many times. No, that's not when you talk about it.
No.
And you don't talk about it as a threat at all. You say, the Lord wants the two of you to be married and to realize that the forgiveness that he gives will be the way it'll work together. It doesn't always work because not both sides sometimes are willing to let that happen. I mentioned to Kathy, somebody who is a mutual friend of ours, I said, we liked both of them so much, how come they couldn't like each other?
Yeah.
We enjoyed both of them. Enjoyed the relationship with both of them, but boom, they couldn't get along with each other.
Yeah.
And so, we may love God and we may love certain people, but some of those people may not get along with God. And I'm never going to threaten somebody with hell. The Bible never does that. But it does say, here's what the relationship is, and here's the peace that comes from it. and I have to trust the Spirit of God will work, if anything's gonna work. Okay, I don't have anything else in my quiver of arrows, except the good news and the Holy Spirit working on someone's heart. But I need to try to find the chance to talk to them. I don't even want to be talked to. And then to try to say it in terms that take the big picture into account, not just you should be in church every Sunday. It has to go much deeper than that. Okay, anyway.
Thank you.
Chapter 3, moving right along. Samuel is in the temple by the ark. Does that surprise you?
Yes.
Should. Because in Exodus 25 to 40, we find the ark in the Holy of Holies, don't we?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
And the only one that goes in there is the high priest, and only on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur. And so here it sounds like a whole different kind of arrangement. The tabernacle's not talked about here at all. I don't have an answer for you, except that at this point, all of that, it says in Chronicles, which is a very late book, that the tabernacle was in another city. But here it sounds like he is right next to it, lying down on the ground. Doesn't mean he's sleeping on top of the thing. But so it says that the word of the Lord was rare. So it also says that there was no frequent vision. So it's time that Samuel hears this voice. Samuel. And the kid, however old he is at this point, all he can do is think Eli's calling him. And by the third time, Eli says, I think the Lord's trying to communicate with him. And so he says, say, speak, Lord, your servant is listening. Okay, I will hear what you have to say. Again, the exact nature of that communication. Was it a dream? Was it a vision? Some of you probably have heard, I don't know what to make of it, I'm just mentioning it. This little 2-year-old who was extracted from a car after being in the frozen water.
Yes.
And the mother died, and yet several of them said, we heard a voice.
Yes.
And I don't know what to make of that.
What, some of us didn't care about it.
A little girl who, the mother died, she went over the side of a bridge, and the car was in the water for many hours, I don't know,
17 or
14, 17 hours. And they were able to pull the little girl out. 6 minutes after they got her out, they were able to revive her. And she has gone home. The mother died. And yet several different rescuers, and they got it on a body cam, several different rescuers said they heard voices about, go save the little girl, or something.
Yeah, or the child couldn't speak, but it was an adult's voice.
Yeah, and so, I don't know what to make of all those things. But the point is that Eli and the people at that time, they were not getting regular communication from God, okay? The TVs were not working or something like that, whatever it was. And so the answer now, Eli himself has heard from this unnamed man that the high priesthood is going to be taken away from him. Now, Samuel hears the same thing. God says, you tell Eli that that his household is going to lose the high priesthood. It's not going to happen until the beginning of chapter 2 of 1 Kings. So we have to go through almost the entire David story, and it's going to be Abiathar, the great-great-grandson of Eli, who finally is going to lose the high priesthood. So it's going to go on for a while yet, but eventually it'll happen, yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, well, in the Old Testament, there's different times that there are voices and someone speaking. Couldn't that be now? Couldn't there, that's a possibility, like in a story with that child. It's,
I don't know what's happening.
well,
But what I will tell you is I do not believe, after the New Testament has been inspired and Jesus has come, that God is communicating his will to us or any new information. All right? So it's one thing, I don't know what happened with this.
Well, yeah,
But
I don't
at Luther's time, there were people who were saying that they were getting communication directly from God. They didn't need to look at the Bible anymore. Okay? And quite frankly, close your ears for a second. When the Pope speaks ex cathedra from his cathedral chair, he says, I'm getting new insights from God. And the Pope is fashioned as if he is the present priest on earth.
Yeah.
You know, the priest under God who is getting revelation about things that were not covered in the scriptures. And so when he speaks ex cathedra, then it says that he's giving further revelations. Luther said popes and councils can err, and what God wants us to know about our salvation is clear enough in what Jesus did. That's the end of it. So, you know, if somebody says, well, I had a vision last night. The Lord laid a vision on me that I should go to Argentina and go to Rosario and find somebody who is standing in the train station and tell them the gospel, and they will be having a red hat on. You know, you know, there will be people who will get that specific with what they are thinking about, and I just don't have any way to interpret that. If I have a dream that I think came from God, I don't have any way to interpret that. So I want to stay with the things I know about salvation and not get into the micromanaging stuff. How this happened, why it happened, it's beyond me. You know, I'm thankful the little girl got spared, and I'm thankful that that happened, and I don't know why it happened. I don't know all those details, but I don't believe God communicates with us in any significantly different way from what he's already told us. In these latter days, he spoke to us through his Son about his will for our eternal life. That's the big deal about the scriptures. I want you with me forever. And the micromanaging of things here, I mean, people will say, we were talking before about calls to pastors. I might say, Lord, guide me in what I am considering now, whether I'm going to take this call or not. But I expect that some of that answer will come through my discussions with other people. And, you know, not that I had one man say to me one time, when I have a call, I go to a room by myself and pray, and I don't want anyone to talk to me about it at all. I would be just the opposite. I would say, give me guidance of what you see my gifts and abilities are, and see whether this is good. And there was a pastor in Michigan, Ron Zender, who said, Trapp, you're a teacher, go take the call to Concordia. I mean, just about that much with about that many words. And so that and a couple of other things, it just seemed that that was the right thing to do. When I got called here after serving here for 4 years, I didn't really pray about it much. By then, I thought if that door gets opened up, that's where the Lord wants me to be. And so the next Sunday, I accepted. I actually probably accepted before I walked in the door when somebody told me that I had been called. Okay? Because by that point, what led up to it already said if the Lord opens this door, then he's opening the door because of a variety of different things that had to come together. But, you know, to say, well, was there a sign from God? Well, there are certain things that kind of stick in your mind when somebody says something. And Dale and I happened to be called at the same Board of Regents meeting. And we were installed the same day. We were interviewed the same winter. My mom and dad used to say at Christmas, now you guys open this package at the same time, you know, if it was the annual shirt or whatever it was, you know, or some certain toy or something like that. And I said, well, if the Holy Spirit plays that same game and we get called at the same Board of Regents meeting and called to come to Concordia, to me that'll be a sign the Lord says both of you go. And we did. We were installed on our parents' 40th anniversary, and so, but I'm not going to say that the Lord cranked down some loudspeaker at 2 in the morning in my bedroom, you know, and said, take it or I'm going to, you know, whatever. Anyway, enough. Okay? So that's all you get.
I accept.
That's all you get on that one. There isn't anymore. So anyway, God, then Samuel reports the entire vision and says, this is what happened, this is what went on. Eli says, you tell me everything. I'm willing to listen to all of it, even though it's not good news for him. And then it says that Samuel was trusted from Dan to Beersheba. Well, Dan is the far northern part of the country. Beersheba is the very southern part of the country. That's how in those days you would say the northern border from New York to LA. Okay, all across. That was just their way of saying that. One more chapter and then we'll take a little break.
Does trusted mean he is known?
Somehow whatever comes that he says, the Lord has given me guidance, the people say, you can bank on that. Okay, so the people saw him as an honorable person, and if there was something, that we don't have any information of what did he say, but that they said, you can trust this one. Okay, so there are some people where we listen to them and we say, I think you can bank on what he said or what she said. Others, you say, I think they might be just exercising their gums a little bit, and they really don't know much about what they're talking about. So if you want to know about quilting, don't ask me. Okay? If I start talking to you about quilting, it's time to go anywhere else. Let's take a break now, 10 minutes, because the whole art story has to go together. All right, so we continue now with chapter 4. I decided I would let this go together because of the story of the ark. You have it on, Helen? Thank you. You did turn it off, didn't you, before?
I turned it off, yeah, before.
Okay,
I just
and-
turned it on right now.
Thank you. So what we have now is Hophni and Phinehas. They, as a consequence, remember that pattern, if you turn away from God, then troubles come upon you, right? Okay, so who is the troublemaker here? It's the Philistines. The Philistines who want as much of this land here as they can get, and the land up here in the Jezreel Valley, the plain of Esdraelon as well. So they're farmers, they want land. And God says, well, I will protect you from your enemies, but if you turn away from me, then you will figure it out because your enemies will have invaded. Okay, now we do not get to say that today. Okay? We don't get to decide that everything going wrong today is because of something we've done wrong. So there are people who, even on 9/11, we're talking about God is punishing us and punishing our country. And people who said God is punishing New Orleans when it flooded. And a variety of other kinds of things like that. And then how are we going to act on the basis of that? What I found very, very interesting, I know there were some more people who went to church out east during the month of September of 2011, or 2001, I mean. I don't think that there was much of a change in church attendance in the middle part of the country at that point. It was not seen as a religious event, an event where we might have to say to God, we're sorry. So that says more about the temperature of the hearts of the people, those who weren't coming. That wasn't going to turn them around either. And it probably shouldn't, you know, as if we're thinking, well, God does these bad disasters to get people to go back to church.
I was going to say, I read in the paper that with all the snow the people had out east, the church attendance was really down, and the offerings weren't coming in, and they were wondering what to do.
We had a whole month in Michigan this summer, the winter before we moved here, where they had 4-day work weeks because the county was not getting so much money, and a lot of the initial layoffs from the car industry. And every Thursday afternoon we got a snowstorm. The whole month of January, every one of them. So they didn't do anything on Friday or Saturday or Sunday. Monday they plowed north-south, Tuesday east-west. Wednesday plowed north-south and east-west to clean them out. Thursday afternoon it started snowing again. I think we had school 5 days that month. And the attendance was down. The people who came on snowmobiles, and the offerings were down very little. Which said something. What it said, it was a little visit from God to tell us about something, a little private vision that he gave us that I can't talk about publicly now. So anyway, the Philistines have attacked, and so what happens as a result of that? Many of the people of Israel die. Even if it's Eleph as a unit, there would have been a lot of people who would have died. And so, what's the bright idea that Hophni and Phinehas have? Let's bring God into the picture.
Get the ark.
The ark is called a war palladium. It's the symbolic or real presence of God coming in to the battle. God couldn't possibly let you lose if his ark is there. So it is really a wonderful definition of the second commandment. You shall not use the power of the Lord your God for your own purposes. Don't take the power of the Lord your God in vain. God says, we want to, guess what? I'll let them take it. I'll let them take it. If you think you can force me to have to win a battle by bringing in the covenant box, I'll let them have it. And so that's what happens. So the Philistines, they hear that the mighty gods are coming in. The word Elohim is translated in the plural at this point. And many more die, and the ark is taken. Now what's inside the box? 10 words, tablets of stone, the jar of manna, that was a symbol or reminder of God feeding the people in the wilderness, the rod of Aaron that budded to show that Aaron's family was the high priestly family that was supposed to finally carry on the show. And what else happens? Hophni and Phinehas both die in battle. Okay, so here the high priest to be and his brother die in battle, and the ark is taken, many others die, and a guy does almost a marathon. A man of Benjamin, which is right around where the territory is where you're going to be in Shiloh, does a 20-mile run, and then tells Eli that his sons have been killed, and it's a little bit more complicated probably about exactly what the scene looks like, but when Eli hears that the Ark of God was taken, he falls backwards, and one translation says that he was kind of up on the wall on the high point of the city, and that he fell backwards, and says he was a very heavy man, and says that he was 98 years old, couldn't see anymore, but he's still listening for the story, and that he dies. Right? I mean, it's not all right. So, Phinehas' wife hears about her husband's death, and she dies in labor. Names her son Ichabod, okay, which we all know from Ichabod Crane,
Yes.
okay, from Washington Irving,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yes.
Is that right, Jim?
Yep, right.
It's not Alexander
The
Dumas?
headless horseman.
It's not Alexander Dumas?
That's not-
Dumas, I'm
I
sorry.
think so, it's French.
Huh?
It's French, isn't it?
And the French won't let me study their language. Yes,
Yeah,
and the fourth one actually too.
that's right.
Anyway, back to the story. Kavod is the word for something heavy. It's the word for your liver, the heaviest internal organ in the body. It's the word for glory. And the little word in front of it, Aleph Yod, means absence of. So the glory of God is gone. Okay? And the glory of God symbolized by God being present there by the ark. That is the place, that's the connecting link between heaven and earth. And now they've lost that. So they've lost, in essence, the other side captured their God. Now what are they going to do? That's what really caused Eli's death. He just went into such gyrations at that he fell and broke his neck and died. And so God says, well, if I want to do that, I can do that, and I can let that happen. But the idea was that a variety of different concepts are probably together here, but it's like the covenant box and the cherubim that are on top of that are sort of like the footstool for God. And now his throne is gone, his footstool is gone, and now what happens? Yes, Steph?
Is there any estimation for how many people lived in Israel at this time who sustained losses like this?
I'm going to give you an answer that nobody likes, okay? But the answer is that the word Eleph, which means 1,000, many people, including George Mendenhall, who taught at Michigan, many people believe that Eleph in an earlier age meant a company, a group. So 40 companies or 24 companies were decimated or something like that. Likely not meaning 1,000 at this. Unfortunately, it's translated 1,000. And so we all see that staring us in the face in the Bible. We say, well, the Bible says 4,000. Well, 4 companies could still be, 10, 15, 20, 30 men. Probably not as many. Okay, probably nothing near what we think. But the trouble is, because we see this printed, everybody says, well, you're questioning the Bible? I'm not questioning the Bible at all. I'm questioning whether the word that we have, whether we know all of its range of meaning. And so I honestly don't think that the word thousand, elef, should always be translated that way. I'm convinced that there were smaller groups and that we would not have had anywhere near this many. Go ahead.
They supposedly.
By the way, the answer to the other part of the question, nobody quite knows how many people would have been there at that time, altogether in the
The
country.
estimate of those that left Egypt was about 1 million.
Well, remember, you're using the word elef there as well. And so, all the way through, it may be smaller family groups than the million. I mean, the normal number is 600,000 or 600 contingents of people. Okay. If Kathy and I went by one of those 15-passenger buses from Cairo down to the St. Catherine's Monastery. And I can't show it here, but it's, this is the eastern edge of the desert, and it goes here and would go all the way down like that, way farther south than this, down around here somewhere. And that took us, I think, about 12 hours, going like 40 or 50 miles an hour. I figured out that if the Israelites would have gone that far down, I don't think St. Catherine's Monastery, that's not the only place in the Old Testament that talks about where Mount Sinai was. We call it the Sinai Peninsula, but that just means the peninsula of thorns. Sinai could be thorns and could be anywhere. The Jewish people don't give any geographical identification of where they think it was. People at the time of Constantine in 325, his mother goes, Helena goes, and looks for some of these holy sites. And they found the tallest mountain top in the Sinai and said, this must be it. And there are people who have lived there at St. Catherine's Monastery. That may not be correct, okay? But it would have taken them, they would have had to go 6 miles a day to be able to get down there, taking 1 day off. 6 miles every day, which if you have 600,000 people plus women and children, and let's say you had 4 or 5 children in your family, that's the line would stretch all the way down there. And I don't think it was as many as we say there was, from our 600,000 versus 600 contingents or clan units or something like that. The trouble is, it sounds like I'm questioning the Bible when I say it. When what I'm really doing is saying, I think there are more realistic numbers, but we're so far away from the numbers that we can't always know what it all meant and what the total would be. Sometimes it means 1,000, we just don't know when. But I don't think probably that many people, I don't think 4,000 or 30,000 died. But 30 contingents, 30 bands were beaten up pretty bad, would still be a lot of people. So I gotta just leave it at that. Eli dies, Ichabod is named. Remember when Rachel has Joseph, she names, as Benjamin, she names him Ben-Oni, son of my anguish. And then he gets renamed son of the south or son of the right hand by others. Here, Phinehas' wife names him the glory of God is gone because the ark has been taken. So, chapter 5. This is kind of funny. And the Jewish people, the Hebrew peoples, the Israelites would have laughed when they read this. Because everywhere the ark goes makes trouble for the Philistines. God hasn't abandoned his ark. He's just living over in some other territory, carrying on his war. The battle they thought they won, they didn't win. So for 7 months, and I have a note in one of my Bibles or commentaries, slow learners. Because they begin to wonder, how come these bad things are happening to us? And they're having plagues. There are 5 cities of the Philistines. 3 of them are along the coast, Gaza and Ashdod here, probably in Ashkelon, and then Ekron is down here in Gath, somewhere up in here. Those are the 5 major cities, and they seem to be pushing it from one to the next one. You try it for a while and see if anything happens to you. We're tired of having it. Okay? And what happened to Dagon? Fell over on his face first time. Next time his arms and legs fell off. Okay, and his head. And says that they would jump over the threshold instead of walking directly, because there are people who thought that you would get tripped up by the gods going into the temple unless you were holy. And the one commentary said, you remember how sometimes in the age of chivalry the man would carry his wife across the threshold, don't let her trip on the way going in. I do this every single day. I step over the threshold. Every single day. I don't just directly walk on it. At my garage. Because the beam, I step over the beam as the garage door is coming down so that it doesn't kick it back up again. So I step over the threshold every single day. Because I don't want to have to open the other door and then lock it again and all that. So I got bowled out by one of my neighbors. He says, you know, they made that for safety for you, and here you are avoiding it. I said, it's my garage. Leave me alone. Don't bother with me.
Sounds a little risky to me.
If I trip or something, then it goes back up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the design.
Well, if it-
Have you tested it yet?
Yes. Yes, I have. And you know how I've tested it? If I don't raise my leg high enough, it kicks it right back up. If I interrupt the beam. Dale, are you? Did you not tell me that that is really what Einstein, the electric interruption of a light beam, that's what he won his Nobel Prize for?
That's right.
So every time we go into a door and the doors open up for us, interrupting the beam, that's what Einstein won his Nobel Prize for. Huh?
Albert did it.
Albert did it. So thank him every time. Every time, okay, every time. I'm sure he won't hear you, but thank him every time. So they've got tumors. They live down in an area where there is some shipping. They shipped out, particularly later, not at this time, but they shipped out a lot of olive oil from that area. And so with ships come rats, and they raise grain. And so they've got animals all around that bring disease. And so that was one of the real big problems that they would have had down there in general. But some people die, some people panic, and I have this here on purpose, send it back. Get it out of here right now. We don't want it around by us anymore. And so the people recognize there is a God. Now the strange thing is, Israel can't figure out for its own life that God is there, and that these foreign people reminds me of Jonah, where Jonah's down sleeping in the bottom of the ship. All the other sailors, they know there's some sort of a deity, that something's happening because, you know, they're having this because somebody did something wrong, and here he's down in the bowels of the ship sleeping, and finally he acknowledges, yeah, I'm trying to escape from my God, and leaves from Joppa, which is just kind of north of this other area here. So there are peoples who recognize God is there, even if not everybody does. So chapter 6, after 7 months, they say, give glory to the God of Israel. Or you could translate that, give the glory, the kavod, back to Yahweh. Give him his kavod back. Okay? But we have to do a little test. We have to find out, was this just happening by chance? Or is that God there from the hills really messing around? Kathy and I, for our almost 9 years that I was pastor in Michigan, we lived on the Ridge Road out in the country. Our nearest neighbors were 10 cows. Okay? and a very beautiful area. Enjoyed it very much. I always knew when Dwayne sold the calves to the feedlot, because those cows would beller all night for about 3 days. All night for about 3 days, missing their calves. Okay? So, what are we gonna do? We're gonna find out whether that box really belongs up there, or if all these things just happen by chance. So we're gonna take up a couple of milk cows, cows that are nursing their young, and we're going to take the young away from them, and we're gonna hitch them up to a cart, put the box on it with a bunch of gifts. Every city is gonna give some gold representing the tumors, which could be anything up, even including hemorrhoids or some sort of bubonic plague or something like that. All sorts of crazy things that may be involved here. And we're gonna send it back up into the hill country. And if those cows go unnaturally, then we'll know he wants the box back. And those cows go lowing and bellering, and they make their way right up. Okay, they do what's unnatural. So they're pretty smart. He wants it back. Okay.
Smarter than the Jews.
Smarter than the Israelites, yes. I'll use the word Jews only of today, okay, for much later. But at least some of them. Okay, most people will follow just because, you know, if it works, follow. Yes, ma'am?
Just curious, because just remembering back was that the ark needed to be carried and no one could touch the ark. So when it went into the enemy's hands, what happened to them?
It doesn't say.
Okay.
It doesn't say that they touched it or they had, I mean, they have it on a cart here. You know, they don't have it on poles because they're not going to get anywhere close up to there. But we do find out that one thing that happens is when the people of Beth Shemesh get it, and again there is an additional number here of 50,000 people who die, which probably is not the actual correct number.
Mine says 70.
70, yes. There's a number 50,000 in the margin. Okay, that everybody says. Somebody later wrote a big number in the margin, and somebody later put that in the text. The Greek translation doesn't have that. Josephus says nothing about that from his text, but somewhere along the way that came in. So, what we have is they look in it, a bunch of them die. Now, number one, they touched it. Wonder what's in the box. Number two, they probably don't have a priest there. Okay, so they are not instructed about the right way to do that. This is Beth Shemesh. Oops, I'm sorry. Beth Shemesh is and Kiryat Jearim, which is going to come next. They let me see if I can find Tel Aviv on here. Tel Aviv is right here, and as you go from Tel Aviv up to Jerusalem, you go through both Beth Shemesh and Kiryat Jearim. Beth Shemesh is kind of at the baseline of the Shephelah as the bus is going. When it starts going up, that's Beth Shemesh, and then you get partway up higher and it's Kiryat Jearim. Same names. Lydia, remember? Pay attention to those on the way, because you don't read the street signs there, huh?
No.
I'm reading these and saying, oh, that's where that is, and that's where that is. But anyway, so as they're going up then, I mean, you're on your way to Jerusalem, and those two places are along the way there. But these people in Beth Shemesh, which means the house of the sun, it's probably an ancient sanctuary from long before the Israelites. Jericho is the moon town. Beth Shemesh is the house of the sun. So they had people who were worshiping other gods, and the names still last even till now. But anyway, the ark is taken further into Kiryat Jearim, and there it is put in the house of a fellow named Abinadab. And so he just kind of takes care of it. It's going to disappear pretty much until 2 Samuel 7, when David says, I need to build a house for the ark. And so the whole story of Saul, almost nothing to do with the ark at all. It's really on hold. And the ark had been in the northern kingdom. It's going to end up in Jerusalem. And some people are going to say, we should be at Bethel or Shiloh or one of these other places, Gilgal. And so there will be people later on in Israel's story who will say there shouldn't be a temple in Jerusalem. That's somebody else's city. And so where David takes over and where Solomon and all the rest of them live in the southern kingdom, there's a whole northern contingent from Ephraim and Manasseh and Benjamin and the others who say, we don't think they ought to be down there. Sort of like states' rights versus federal rights. I don't know if you've ever heard about that in this country. Two big different views. Who should make a decision? Should the education head in Washington decide how education is going to be run in every state? Or should we have local school districts? And what about every child left behind and all of those kind of things? And I think 44 states now have a waiver on every child left behind. But when you get to 44, it's not much of a law anymore. But you know, these different ideas of what should our government be like, they have them there too. So anyway, Samuel calls for all the other deities to be removed. Then he and the people confess their sin at Mizpah, and it says then the Lord thunders. Remember we saw that in chapter 2? It said the Lord thunders. Well, that's one of the ways he works. He's going to scare them good and proper. There are a lot of people who are going to just run away from any trouble just because they're so afraid. And the Philistines, they've had 7 months of it already. So they're not going to be quite as eager to go and fight against the people. So Samuel then puts the stone of help. Ebenezer, Evan is the word for stone. Etzer is the word for help. So he puts that there. He sets up a stone and says, the Lord has helped us to this point. We ask him to help us now in the future, and may God give us the victory. The victory that was not won by Hophni and Phinehas, Samuel now wins. He's a complicated man. He's going to be a kingmaker. He's a warrior. He is a judge. He is a prophet. Variety of different tasks that he has. And so Israel gets all the land back that the Philistines had taken. And then we're told about him as the judge who goes 4 cities in this central hill country. And here I'm not pointing them out exactly. Ramah was his hometown. But he goes to 4 different places, and probably more like Deborah, sits down under a tree and says, okay, what kind of troubles are you having? And he asks God for the insight in our standard way of what a judge would do. And he tries to help people resolve their issues. You might remember Moses would do that from morning until nighttime. And then his father-in-law says, why don't you appoint some other people who can do the little cases, and the big ones then you take care of. So they kind of saved the big ones up for Samuel. So he's got a regular route that he is doing along with everything else. Chapter 8 then, we find out that Samuel's kids are no good nicks.
Are no good next too?
Yes. And really the question comes, are we going to have successors who are family members, a dynasty, or are we going to have successors who are the best person involved? Plato in the Republic, he says, I don't trust people. The Republic has nothing to do with democracy. He says, I wouldn't trust most of them. He says there's a few people you get once in a while who are honorable enough to live beyond themselves and to serve the good of the state. Don't expect their kids will be. Okay? Their kids probably are going to be worthless. And we got a bunch of examples in the Bible of that. Now, the Sunnis versus the Shiites. 90% are Sunni, according to the basic reports I read. They said a descendant of Muhammad should, and his nephew was the first one, a descendant of Muhammad should be the leader. The Shias say the most qualified person, so you don't elect somebody's kid. You take the most qualified person along the way. And so, again, a variety of different ways of how things are going to go. But because Samuel's kids are wicked, then the people say we want a king like everyone else. We just got to the magic bullet. This is the magic bullet in the whole story. We want to be like everyone else. It's the problem that the Christian church has faced since the beginning. How do we stay faithful to Christ when a lot of people say, well, yeah, I know all that, but we want this. And so, do we try to please? I'm gonna say this just bluntly. Is my job to please the members or to please the Lord? What if all the members leave?
That's,
Then they leave.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
I don't have a right as a called person to say, what kind of church would you like? And let's see if we can do it. We're not designing the Christian church. A lot of you probably have not heard me say this, but the members from Emmaus heard me say every time we got a call returned, and I think I said it over at Jehovah as well, remember that Jesus is the pastor of this parish, who is temporarily called to serve on behalf of the Lord. That, we don't know who that's going to be. But the pastor of every Christian church is Jesus Christ. And if he's not, then we got trouble. Okay? This is not what's my idea. And some people say, well, we've had hundreds of hours where we spend, what kind of church do we want? That's already been determined.
Yeah.
Okay? But there will be people who say, yes, but we want this, and we can have this, and this, and this, and this. And by the time you get those things, the nature of the situation is changed. And then it's not on the mission for the Lord anymore. Vuli and I meet early in the morning on Thursdays, and we're in a unit now on church history. I'm sorry, Lydia, but I sure wish I could talk to Carl, because I don't understand anything about the early church. And every time I read about it, I think about sitting in his class, and I know he tried to teach me, but not much of it stuck, about the challenges of the early church. You know, to understand, well, a lot of people kept trying to say, how can we change this? How can we adapt to this? How can we adapt to that? And the truth is, we don't know how to bring the gospel across in different settings. But we often see the trouble that comes when somebody says, well, society thinks this way, and I think the church needs to keep up with the times. You have people leave because of that. Okay? And you have to take your shot. You have to take your shot and say, well, maybe somebody else will come. I have no responsibility just to make you happy. I hope if I preach the gospel, you'll be happy because you hear the gospel. But my job is not to stick my finger up and say, which way is the wind blowing? What would we like? Now, there are certainly different ways that congregations live out their ministry and different aspects of ministry that each congregation is going to have because of the gifts that God gives people. And that's well and good. So none of them are going to look like a rubber stamp of the other one. They shouldn't all look the same because people's gifts and abilities are going to be different. So what some congregation may be deeply involved with, another one would say, well, that just doesn't draw our attention. We're involved in this instead, we're involved in that.
Then the ELCA will tell you that you're prejudiced.
Yep.
And I tell them, yeah, I made up my mind, I know where I'm going. Don't you?
Well, we need to struggle with how do we love people whom we believe have looked at the gospel and said, yeah, that's all okay, but we want more. Or this didn't work right. And Vu and I talked this morning, I talked about all the things that are different in our society from when I began as a pastor. And so how do you even address some of the issues that weren't even an issue or didn't seem to be a big issue 40 years ago? And yet they're there, and you don't want to lose people. You don't want to just tell them, well, you're dumb or you're wrong. Because the idea is you want to keep bringing your sheep and your lambs back. So that takes a lot of discussion, it takes a lot of trust. If somebody already wants to reject it, or reject the framework out of which I'm operating, then I'm already in trouble. I did a pastor's conference down in Florida, got to be 25 years ago anyway. And I talked, it was an afternoon and then an afternoon and an evening. And at supper, there's a round table, 6 or 7 of us at the table, and this one guy who was a pastor, he said, well, I heard you say this and this and this and this, and I've heard that before and I just reject that. I said, well, then I guess we don't have anything to talk about. And everybody else at the table, how could you talk to him like that? He just said, I've heard enough out of you that I don't buy any of it. So what are we going to talk about then? Let's talk about the weather. You know, I mean, he was not being polite to me. He wasn't rethinking something. And so I'm trying to share what I understand about bearing the cross and what that means. And he heard that and he said, I've rejected that. And so if somebody wants to say that, that's their right to be able to say it. I'm trying to bring what I hear out of the scriptures, not make up my own story. And so the others, they were, how could you be so impolite to him? Being impolite. He said, I don't want to talk to you about this anymore. I don't listen, I don't believe anything you say. So, okay. And so there are times when I have gone way too far trying to win somebody over and had a whole bunch of other people say, you should have shut up 20 minutes before. I remember one time I was up in North Dakota and they said, you gave that guy a lot more respect than he deserves. He's always picking on everybody. So I was trying to win the brother, trying to help him hear what I think is in the text. So go do a lot of studying and then see where that goes. Well, anyway, because of Samuel's sons, it says here, the people come to him and say, we want a king. And Samuel goes whimpering to God like Stan Laurel and says, oh, they're rejecting me, they don't want me anymore. God says, shut up, they're rejecting me, not you. So if somebody says, I don't buy what you talk about with the Christian faith, they're rejecting Jesus, not me. As long as I'm saying it faithfully. Okay? Now, if I'm not saying it faithfully, then I should be taken to task. But if I'm trying the best I can to say, here's the story of salvation, and somebody says, I don't buy into that, then I don't want to give up on them. But here, Samuel describes Solomon. What he says is exactly what Solomon is going to do. You're going to serve your king. He's not going to serve you. Remember how Jesus says, I came not to be served, but to serve and to give my life as a ransom for many. And the disciples, they're squabbling. Jesus just said, I'm going up to Jerusalem to die. They're going to crown me with thorns. They're going to spit on me. They're going to beat me. And the disciples are saying, Peter and Andrew, or no.
Judas?
No.
James.
James and John.
James and Lester.
James and John are saying, can we sit at your right and left hand in the kingdom?
Duh.
Here he says, I'm going up to die. And they say, can we be in your kingdom next to you? And the other disciples get very angry that they hadn't asked it first. They wish they could have asked first, can we be at either side? They weren't angry because Jesus told them no. They were angry because, they thought of it before we did. I want to be in this important position. Well, you don't always get in that important position. But the people say, we made our decision. And once they ask for it, then God says, okay, you're going to get it. Let's see what happens. And from here on through the end of 2 Kings, we're going to find out it wasn't a good story. We want to be like everyone else. And so these kinds of things, they're not prescriptive, but in being descriptive and with the consequences, we certainly ought to give pause to ourselves about how do we want to make things and what do we want to have and what's old school or that old time religion, what's just plain the gospel.
Yeah.
And we don't have a choice in the matter. Well, we do, but not staying in the kingdom. A friend of mine, George Schetzel, went on vicarage in Kansas City. He was up in North Kansas City, and I have to talk to him about this one of these days because he got me terribly lost after I left his place. In Kansas and Missouri, back and forth, I couldn't find my house for about 2 hours because I didn't realize that there's just one little street, not this wide, for separating Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. But George, already in September, he said, I'm quitting my vicarage. I said, George, you can't do that. So I drove up to talk to him. And he said, I cannot possibly think of preaching a sermon on the same topic every Sunday for 40 years. I got one story to tell. I can't think of having to do that 2,000 times, plus Lent and Advent, etc. He was right. I got one story to tell. Every text has to somehow be wrapped up in that story. God wants you in eternity forever, restored to a relationship with Him, and in Christ's death and resurrection you've been restored. Claim that by faith, and the rest of it will be your life of thank you. But George went in the army, 1968. No, 1967, fall of 1967, George went in the Army. Later, he went back in the ministry. Okay, he did go back later, and he's a classmate of mine from Ann Arbor. I hope he'll come to the reunion we have in May, and that I can catch up with him. But he's right, it's the only story. And so Samuel says, you may be rejecting me, and you may be rejecting God. He's gonna let you have what you asked for. But it's not gonna be a pretty picture. And so the people want to be like everybody else. So chapter 9 then, we have Saul, the son of Kish, a Benjaminite. All right, so Ephraim, Samuel's family, is from the tribes of Rachel in the middle, Ephraim and Manasseh here, and now Benjamin just north with their southern border right on the edge of Jerusalem. He says he's rich and tall, so we have this strange thing that he thinks he's looking for donkeys, and he gets found by Samuel, who he was looking for to see if he knew where the donkeys were. And Samuel says, well, God sent you to me because you're going to become the king. And it's kind of a three-stage process. So he tells him that, first of all, he and his helper, the young man, well, we better have some money if we're going to go talk to the seer. You pay him a little money. You give him a little money if you're going to go, and all of a sudden, the guy finds a little coin in his pocket. And so we go see him. And then they go and talk to him, and Saul comes to this sacrifice and finds out he gets the special portion. And so this special portion that Hophni and Phinehas wanted to take for themselves, Samuel saves this one out for him. Right away, he's going to have goosebumps. What is going on here? How come I'm getting treated in such a nice way? And then he is told that he's going to become king. He's told that privately at first, and he's anointed. That word, what is the Hebrew word for anoint? Mashach. Mashiach. Anybody ever heard of a Mashiach? Messiah. Okay. Now, standard answer is that I've worked with a lot is that oil is part of the fruits of the land. So if you have oil, then you can make pancakes instead of crackers. Okay, so it's a nicer food for making things. It's also used for healing. So you put oil on bandages to try to help with healing and things like that. So the richness of the land, the blessings of restoration in the land, and also another thing that many will talk about is that since God makes living things like the olive tree, that if you take something living and you pour that and anoint the person with that, then the gift from God comes through that. Somewhere in there is why they did their anointing. So Saul is the first Messiah. If you said, where's the Messiah? They wouldn't say, well, he's going to be born of the Virgin Mary in 1,000 years and save us from our sins. They would say, oh, he's up in Gibeah. Later they would say about David or Solomon or any rest of them, oh, he's up in Jerusalem in the palace, or he's out hunting somewhere or whatever. So for the next 400 years, Messiah is going to refer to their king. When that king gets taken away into exile, Jehoiachin in 586 before Christ, then when they come back, they don't rebuild the palace. So then, waiting for a king, because we'll see in a couple of weeks that God promised one of David's descendants would always rule, then they begin to hope for a Messiah. Many of them gave that up. There really was another Messiah called the high priest, who also was anointed with oil. So the one who goes before God and the people, the other one who goes out into battle. So your king is really going to replace your judge. You're going to have a permanent one now. Chapter 10, he's anointed, then he has the Spirit of God come on him, and it says he has a different heart. A different heart, and then he says nothing about the fact that he was anointed even to his uncle, and it says that he is, we might talk about speaking in tongues or rolling around in the ground like a holy roller, we're not sure exactly what. but being seized by God somehow. And then when the people gathered together, they said they wanted a king. So Samuel says, okay, now let's gather together. They come to Mizpah, where they anoint, or where they publicly acknowledge him as king. And what happens? He's hiding by the baggage. He's a scaredy cat. He doesn't even come out. Okay. Taller than anybody else by a head and shoulders, but they have to go and they have to get him. Then, in his only good thing, his only good battle, the people of Jabesh Gilead up here, remember the story about the Benjaminites who killed the people of Gibeah, Saul's hometown, who raped that woman till she died? Okay, and then they get a lot of the wives for the remaining 600 Benjamites from up here in Jabesh Gilead who didn't send anybody to battle. So there is a connection back and forth there. Well, now the Jabesh Gileadites get told by Nahash the Ammonite, who lives a little farther east, I want all this land back. I want you under my control, and so I'm going to put your right eye out. They say, can you give us 7 days? I'm sure you can have 7 days. Nobody's going to come and help you. Saul hears about that, and then he goes, maybe with his own family. You know, some of the Benjaminites may have been up there too. It seems it's kind of suspicious that they wouldn't have that. And so Saul calls for the warriors from Israel and Judah. Oddly enough, Israel and Judah are separate even here. We're going to see the divided kingdom later. And then he attacks the Ammonites, 3 companies, so he comes from different directions, defeats them, defeats Nahash, and then finally at Gilgal, everybody says, whoopee, we got a king. We have somebody who has gone into battle on our behalf. And so that's the kind of judge that you would have had from Gideon and some of the others, and Deborah and Barak back before. Well, from there on, it gets to be not so good. Because now Samuel says, okay, I'm stepping aside. And he declares his innocence. He says, does anybody have anything against me? Is there anything I've done, anything I've stolen, any fault that you find in me? And that's known, I'd like to give you this German word, okay? This is particularly for you over in the corner there, Jim. A Selbstbeschwichtigungsformel.
Okay.
All right? Memorize that by next week. It is known as a formula that declares one's innocence. So a lot of the Psalms have this. God, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why I'm having this trouble. And Samuel's kind of saying that he didn't do anything wrong. Why are they rejecting me as being the leader? Well, because your kids are no good. That's not what God says. He says they're rejecting me. But Samuel says, I'm going to keep on praying for you, but I'm not in charge anymore of all the stuff that's going on. I'm going to step aside. You ask for a king, you get your king. And then you get rain and thunder in May and June. That just doesn't happen. So we get kind of strange storms once in a while. You know what it's like when it rains and we have lightning in January? Every once in a great while, well, that's kind of strange. That's kind of odd. And so they got that there. And Samuel says, I'm going to still pray for you along the way. Well, Saul and Jonathan are still having trouble with the Philistines. They're starting to come back and try and get the land once again. And Saul was told, you wait until Samuel comes, because he's going to be functioning like the priest. Remember, Hophni and Phinehas aren't in the deal. And we'll see just one little brief reference to Ahitub and the relatives of Eli in here, but they're pretty much gone as well. So Samuel delays coming until the 7th day. If Saul had read Judges, he would have said, Gideon won with 300 guys. I don't care how many of my soldiers are going away. God wins by few or by many. Instead, he's thinking like a human being. Oh, they're all leaving. Remember how the spies said, how are we going to win the victory? As soon as you say it's just me, you're in trouble. When you say, the Lord works in and through and with me, you're all right. As soon as, how can I fix this? Instead of, Lord, help me direct my attention toward this, then we're already running into a lot of difficulties. So Samuel says, your kingdom is being taken away from you. Okay. There's a couple of different things that come along the way with this. Your kingdom will not continue. So first of all, the first stage is there won't be a dynasty. Later it's going to be you personally are in trouble with God as well. And so this is with the raid that takes place, Jonathan is the one who is the real honorable one. Now, we get the son who's honorable. And we'd think, well, that would start a dynasty, but because of Saul's foolishness in saying, I'll act in my own way, Jonathan ends up losing out here. And so they have this victory, but Saul says, nobody eats. We're going to see it 2 or 3 times say, nobody eats. Kind of dumb. That's no carbo loading. You're not going to be very strong when you need to be strong. And so why he says that, maybe, well, God will give victory even if we're weak. And God, look at what we're doing. Would you please help us win? Jonathan, who doesn't hear that his dad said nobody eats anything, dips his walking stick in a honeycomb and eats a little honey, and his eyes brightened up. And everybody said, oh my, you're in trouble with your dad. Because he made that oath and now he's going to fulfill it. Remember that when Jephthah made the oath about his daughter, he apparently puts her to death. This one's going to be a little bit different. The people are so hungry after they do win the victory, they're killing animals and eating them raw. They are so famished. And Saul says, no, bring that, here's a stone, at least bring that, your animals to that stone. And so they build an altar there. Then Saul asks the Lord, should he go into battle? And he doesn't get an answer, probably from some priestly figure there. And so they finally figure out Jonathan had sinned. And in one of the nicest stories, the people say, if Jonathan dies who won the victory today, then we're all a bunch of fools. He won the victory and they redeem him. They ransom him from his father's curse. And kind of nice this time of the year to hear that. Others, they ransomed him, the Lord ransoms us. He knows we're guilty, but he says, I'll ransom you anyway. And so Saul does win victories, but most of them are really not his as much as Jonathan's victories. And then the last chapter, Samuel says to Saul, go and get rid of the Amalekites. They are under the curse. They're the ones that attacked Israel when they left Egypt. So they live kind of in this southern area down here primarily. And he says, go and attack them and defeat them. And they spare the best of the animals. They spare the best of the loot. They spare King Agag. And Saul just says, oh, we were just bringing this so that we could sacrifice it to God. And here's, I think, the first time we hear, to obey is better than to sacrifice. Don't say, well, we'll just fulfill all the right rules. He says, God said this. Don't you come up with some new and improved answer for what you're going to do. And so the Lord says to Samuel, and I regret that Saul himself is the king. So now we get to the point that he himself is going to be removed as well. The first one, he's not going to have an heir, a dynasty. Now he himself is going to be removed. And so Samuel's robe gets torn as Saul says, oh, come on, please, please, please. And Samuel says, hey, it's enough. He goes back with him, but then Samuel kills Agag. Again, functioning like the judge. And that's it for the day.